Welcome back to Rapture Tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and get ready for another story you won't forget. Let's dive back to the story. Chloe Harrington floated through her days in a golden haze of luxury, surrounded by silks, jewelry, and extravagant shopping sprees. She had convinced herself that life was meant to be enjoyed, not labored over, and every attempt by her husband, Nathaniel, to involve her in meaningful work was met with laughter or dismissal. Designer clothes arrived daily, exotic meals were delivered at her doorstep, and every whim was granted by a staff who had long since stopped questioning her demands. Her young son, Leo, often went unnoticed as she was absorbed in her own indulgences, delegating all parenting tasks to Sophie, the ever-loyal maid. Chloe's life was a carefully curated fantasy, a bubble of wealth where effort and accountability had no place, and she wore her idleness as a badge of superiority. Nathaniel, patient yet increasingly frustrated, observed the widening gap between Chloe's world of leisure and reality. He loved her deeply, but her utter refusal to take responsibility made him anxious about their family's future. "Chloe, life is unpredictable," he warned, his voice edged with concern. "You need to learn to stand on your own to handle challenges, because wealth isn't always permanent." Chloe would smile condescendingly, brushing his words aside with a delicate flick of her wrist. "Nate, I was born to enjoy life, not to suffer through work. That's your job, not mine." Though he wanted to argue, he often let it go, knowing confrontation only enraged her, and the illusion of her perfect, effortless life persisted for one more day. Then, one ordinary morning, the world Chloe knew shattered. Sophie approached her cautiously, her hands trembling as she held a phone. Chloe had never seen fear in Sophie's eyes, and it made her uneasy. "Miss Chloe, it's about Mr. Harrington. There's been an accident," Sophie stammered. Chloe's heart skipped, disbelief clouding her senses. She snatched the phone and heard the hospital's grim confirmation. Nathaniel had been in a fatal car crash. The words seemed to echo in a vacuum. All the wealth, all the luxury she had taken for granted, now felt like fragile illusions. In that instant, Chloe realized that she had no safety net, no skills, no experience, and no one to rely on but herself. The reality of responsibility hit her like a tidal wave. The hospital demanded payment for Nathaniel's outstanding bills, a sum that seemed impossibly high to Chloe, who had never handled finances. She scraped together a portion of her personal shopping funds, feeling a sting of humiliation she had never experienced before. Within days, the staff began approaching her for unpaid salaries. Sophie, Dan the gardener, and others who had faithfully served her. Chloe, who had lived a life where every demand was met without question, suddenly felt powerless. She had no idea how to manage household accounts, and her confidence crumbled. Each interaction reminded her of how utterly unprepared she was for life outside her bubble of privilege. Determined to handle the funeral arrangements, Chloe went to the bank, only to be blindsided by further devastation. The bank manager revealed that Nathaniel's accounts were frozen due to a massive outstanding loan he had taken. Chloe's heart sank. The wealth she assumed to be permanent was inaccessible. Panic clawed at her chest as she realized their mansion, luxury cars, and lifestyle were all at risk. Just a week later, representatives arrived at the estate, informing her that the property was being reclaimed, giving her only 24 hours to vacate. Abandoned by her so-called wealthy friends and left with nowhere else to turn, Chloe faced a reality she had never imagined: homelessness and complete dependence on her own limited abilities. With a heavy heart, Chloe packed her few remaining belongings and took Leo to her mother, Helen Crawford, who lived in a modest bungalow on the outskirts of the city. Helen, a woman who had survived hardship and understood the value of hard work, immediately set expectations. "Chloe, it's time you learn to take responsibility for yourself and for Leo. No one will clean up after you anymore," Helen said firmly. Chloe, humbled and frightened, realized there was no escape. She was tasked with cleaning the small house, cooking, and caring for Leo, each action a reminder of her prior negligence. Initially, frustration and resentment bubbled inside her, but the reality was undeniable. She had to adapt or fail. Helen encouraged Chloe to sell her remaining designer clothes and jewelry to raise some money for survival. It was humiliating to see pieces she had treasured reduced to cash, but Chloe followed her mother's instructions. The modest sum she earned allowed her to rent a small shop in the local market, a far cry from the mansion she had once called home. Her first days running the grocery and raw foodstuff business were mortifying. Customers, numbers, and managing inventory were all new challenges. Chloe's hands, once accustomed only to luxury, now ached from labor, but each task, though exhausting, brought a sense of accomplishment she had never experienced. The first month was a whirlwind of errors, laughter, frustration, and small victories. Chloe learned to manage money, balance accounts, and even haggle with suppliers, skills she had never imagined acquiring. Every evening, exhausted, she would sit with Leo and recount the day's lessons. Though her pride was bruised, she discovered a newfound sense of independence and resilience. Friends who once surrounded her for her wealth disappeared, but in their absence, Chloe realized she was capable of building something authentic. Slowly, the haze of idleness lifted, replaced with clarity, purpose, and the satisfaction of effort rewarded. 2 months later, Chloe had stabilized her small business enough to handle daily operations confidently. She had learned to prioritize her son's needs, manage finances, and even plan for the future. One morning, as she prepared for Leo's school day, a surprise visitor arrived. The funeral director, informing her that all arrangements for Nathaniel had been finalized and paid. Chloe felt a mixture of sorrow and pride. She had ensured a dignified process despite her limited resources. Yet a quiet unease lingered in her mind, a shadow of doubt that perhaps Nathaniel's absence was more complicated than it seemed. The burial day arrived, and Chloe stood at the cemetery with a mix of grief and accomplishment. She had faced her worst fears, lost her comforts, and learned humility in ways that luxury could never teach. The casket was lowered, and Chloe felt an ache of finality, yet a part of her had grown stronger, capable, and independent. Friends and family watched, some sympathetic, others judgmental, but Chloe's gaze was fixed on Leo, who held her hand tightly. She realized that the journey of loss had unexpectedly gifted her resilience, clarity, and a sense of purpose that no indulgence could replicate. Then, in a moment that made hearts leap and jaws drop, Nathaniel Harrington appeared, alive and unharmed, stepping from behind the mourners. Shock and disbelief froze Chloe in place. Every fiber of her being rebelled against the sight of him. Nathaniel! How? She stammered, her voice trembling between anger and astonishment. Nathaniel explained calmly, his eyes revealing the mixture of love and exasperation he had always carried. He had faked his death, observing Chloe's reaction to hardship, teaching her a lesson about self-reliance and responsibility in the most extreme way possible. Chloe felt a storm of emotions, rage, betrayal, relief, and awe. She had endured humiliation, hardship, and labor she had never imagined, only to learn that it had been orchestrated to teach her the value of independence. Tears streamed as she realized the painful truth. Nathaniel's action, though extreme, had forced her to confront her weaknesses and emerge stronger. Chloe understood that survival and self-worth were forged in adversity, not in luxury. The lesson she had learned would remain with her forever, reshaping her understanding of life, wealth, and love. Nathaniel reached for her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. Chloe, you've grown beyond what I could have imagined. You've faced reality and conquered it. That strength, that independence, you've earned it. Chloe's anger softened as she looked at him, seeing not just the man who had deceived her, but the one who had believed in her potential enough to risk everything. For the first time, she truly appreciated the depth of their partnership, the intertwining of love, accountability, and mutual respect. In the weeks that followed, Chloe rebuilt her life with renewed vigor. She continued to manage her small shop with diligence, expanding slowly and earning respect from her community. The sting of humiliation became a badge of honor, a symbol of the woman she had become. Nathaniel supported her not with wealth alone, but with partnership, encouragement, and guidance, allowing Chloe's talents and resilience to flourish naturally. Together, they became a team that thrived on effort, love, and shared responsibility. Chloe's relationship with Leo deepened as well. She now balanced work, home, and motherhood with a discipline she had never imagined. Leo's laughter, once drowned out by her vanity and indulgence, became a constant reminder of the joys of responsibility and care. Chloe no longer feared hardship. She had faced it and survived, learning that comfort without effort was hollow, while accomplishment earned through struggle was profoundly rewarding. Nathaniel eventually surprised Chloe with an ambitious plan, a massive shopping mall, a dream project designed for her, not as a mere indulgence, but as a test of her newfound skills. Chloe approached it with the same diligence and strategy she had applied to her small shop, managing staff, budgeting, and making executive decisions. The mall became a symbol of her transformation, a tangible testament to how far she had come. Luxury was no longer a crutch. It was an achievement she had earned. In time, Chloe's former friends returned, curious about her newfound independence and success. She welcomed them differently now, with self-respect and confidence, no longer defined by dependence or wealth. Her story became one of inspiration, showing that transformation was possible when hardship met determination. Chloe realized that true relationships, whether in business, family, or love, were strengthened by accountability and effort, not mere indulgence. Nathaniel and Chloe's love deepened, now rooted in shared experience, respect, and mutual understanding. Chloe had learned to value labor, money, and responsibility, while Nathaniel had learned the power of resilience in those he loved. Together, they built a life that blended success with humility, indulgence with effort, and love with accountability. Their bond, tested and proven, became stronger than any luxury or wealth could ever provide. Chloe continued expanding her business ventures, now employing and mentoring young women, teaching them not just commerce, but independence, resilience, and the value of hard work. She shared her story openly, recounting how wealth without responsibility had once left her helpless, and how hardship had shaped her into a capable, confident woman. Chloe became a role model, demonstrating that transformation is not only possible, but essential for growth and fulfillment. Eventually, Chloe and Nathaniel looked back on their ordeal with clarity. What had begun as a life of indulgence had transformed into one of purpose, love, and mutual respect. Chloe's confidence and independence were no longer theoretical. They were real, tested in the fires of adversity, and validated by survival and success. She had faced her laziness, confronted humiliation, and emerged triumphant, proving that even the most spoiled and idle can find strength when pushed to their limits. In the final chapter of their journey, Chloe and Nathaniel celebrated not just wealth regained, but the richness of character, resilience, and love cultivated through trials. Chloe had learned that comfort without effort was empty, while responsibility and independence brought true fulfillment. Their family, once defined by indulgence, was now bound by mutual respect, shared responsibility, and profound understanding of life's unpredictability. Chloe Harrington had finally met her match, not in a person, but in the challenge of life itself, and emerged victorious, stronger, wiser, and fully alive. That's all for today. Like, subscribe, and see you in the next episode. Stay tuned.